Hey, everybody, this is Harvey Sluggo Wasserman back for the 209th Green Grassroots Emergency Election Protection Coalition Zoom call, where you're in the second or third week, but it feels like a couple of years already of the second Trump presidency. And we've got, as always, a ton to talk about. The second hour today at 3 o'clock Pacific, 6 o'clock Eastern, we're going to introduce the ECO-Broadcast Network as a central generating facility for articles about a post-nuclear environmental movement, and going to be much to talk about that. Like that, if you're focused on the environment, you'll want to stick around with us for the second hour. In the first hour, we've got just an overwhelming amount of material to deal with. We are going to start with a fabulous poem, as always, from our great Poet Laureate MIMI GERMAN, who's out in the boondocks of Eastern Oregon dodging rattlesnakes. But we're also going to talk about Elon Musk's latest recommendation to essentially forget the Holocaust. At least he says it happened. We're also going to talk about Lindsey Graham getting dissed by MAGA. We may do a little bit about the ball game yesterday and the coming Super Bowl. We have a big fight in the Wisconsin Supreme Court that we need to deal with. Also talk about Elon Musk's lottery and Greg Palast's work. Greg may not be able to join us today, but there's a lot going on in reevaluating or taking a closer look, shall we say, at the 2024 election and the real impact of voter turnout and the suppression of voter turnout, which is very, very critical. We also, of course, need to update on Leonard Peltier. I do hope that TATANKA BRICCA will be with us, but there are very, very powerful and important developments in his case, some of which we really don't know much about what's going on, including his actual whereabouts. So there's a ton of stuff to deal with. And Christopher's just calling me. Mimi, do you want to jump in with our poem of the day, please? Mimi?
Yeah, I can do that. I also wanted to say that, oh, good, Carol's here. I was invited to speak at a church in West Virginia via Zoom yesterday to do a war poems reading. War Poems is my latest book of poetry. And I know that we have some people in the South here today. And I just wanted to say that I really feel everybody who is living in the South right now who is not, part of MAGA, really, so my heart goes out to you in the resistance. The poem I have today is called Time. Time. I do not dread time. It is the one constant, never late or MIA. No announcement for arrival or departure. It is the depth of fuchsia unraveling, revealing stars inside the blood of wolves, and nectar on slippers of a foraging bee. Time is a long desert shadow, crooked at the crossroads, edges earthed into hillside where a raven once cawed, and inside of time, the outside of time, and the apparition of a Buddha, or a flower beckoning with petaled wings. It is the 6-point buck and the buckskin horse, a pregnant ewe and the soft lilt of angels passing by. A leaf sunning in the shallows knows the way of it, of wanderers and pastures dawning, the awe of ghosts who seek from kitchen windows. Beneath the icy pond, light yawns into song. A rock falls from a mountain with no one to view but the screech of the scorching wind. Hitch up the saddle to its back, then ride to the bottom of the dry where waters hide, then storm. Time is true majesty, and naked the emperor. It is the milk of honey, the crescent in moonlight, coyote print of winter's cold, swell of love or gallant tide, sucking you under, raising you toward breath. Breathe, breath, ride. Right. Do not care about the rings in my tree. One more, one less does not make time. matter. It is there, here, and here, there. In death do us part from the first cry of life, cut from its umbilicus. Never is time always.
That was absolutely
Wow,
wonderful. Thanks. Sluggo,
beautiful.
take over.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much, Mimi, as always. Don't care about the ring on your tree. I love that one. And I will say the word time has special meaning to me because it was the first rock and roll song that I ever got addicted to. I had one record, it was the Chambers Brothers, and their song was Time Has Come Today. I can still hear it in my inner ear. Mimi, thank you so much. You're
You're
wonderful.
welcome.
You're
Thank you.
wonderful as always. We really appreciate it. We're going to go now to somebody we've been talking about for a long, long time, and remarkably not in the news, but apparently, well, definitely been his sentence has been commuted. He did not want a pardon. Very explicitly said told Joe Biden not to pardon him, but he did get his sentence commuted, and we're not exactly sure where he is now. We have TATANKA BRICCA. We also have LYDIA PONCE on with us from the Indigenous community. LYDIA, if you'll jump in after TATANKA, that would be great. Good to see you in your car, not driving TATANKA. But what can you tell us about Leonard?
Yeah, I heard a brief message from Chase, which
Well,
we'll
wait,
talk about.
Chase Iron Eyes.
I'm sorry,
That's all
Chase
right.
Iron Eyes, the Lakota man who was held responsible for the Standing Rock resistance. Of course, it was a lot of people, but he took the hit along with others, accused of felonies and first singled out by Kristi Noem as a domestic terrorist, along with his daughter and wife. Anyway, so I did hear from Chase. You realize there's no news, right? There's no news.
Yeah.
You try to find out where he is or what's happened, it's like a complete blackout. So the information that we reported last week on your show that from the helicopter in Minnesota was correct. So what I heard from Chase is that he landed at Turtle Island. He was welcome at Pine Ridge, said Chase, but he did choose to be with his tribe, his Chippewa tribe at Turtle Mountain. That's all we know. And it's understandable. Most of you probably read what the representative, starting with Christopher Wray and others from the FBI, said, calling him a cold-blooded killer, et cetera, misplaced of justice, such and such. So he will be one among many that eyes are being kept upon. So I haven't really been able to find out anything else that's going on with Chase. And I do know that with all the celebrations, there's also preparation to expect the worst from La Migra, from ICE, because they are very much in the crosshairs. So it's good news. He is in Turtle Island, although the news would have you believe that he will be released in February 18th or something.
Right.
Yeah. So that's what I can tell you. And
well, we would assume, Tatanka, correct me if I'm wrong, that he's getting medical care at this.
Yeah.
This is we're talking about Leonard Peltier. For those of you who join us in the process here, Leonard Peltier, Tatanka, maybe Lydia, if you can confirm, Leonard Peltier is no longer in the federal prison in Florida where he's been most recently held. Is that correct?
Last I knew last week, unless plans the day that we all met on the Zoom, last I heard was in a helicopter in north. And I believe that was confirmed by some of you online. But here's the thing. There's a lot going on in Indian country, and there are people who are trying to drag him back to something that he didn't do. And whenever you see people casting shade or doubt or anything, we need to remind each other that the social media is not the place for discussion on these things. And I'm going to say that I know it to be true because of the people who told me. But however, and I have to add, in conflict with all of the things that the FBI did, Quintel Pro, all of it, that have to remind people that there is no such thing as social media court. And right now, he is getting medical care, that he has a lot of complications from diabetes. He himself said that he's looking forward to getting his shoulders fixed, getting some surgery, much needed surgery, so that way he can again. And I think that's what we have to focus on. But you will see people trying to drag him into a place and time that had nothing to do with him. And if you see that, it would be great. You can, as relatives, it matter, if you can say, this is not the place or time to discuss these things. And if anything, you should take it offline. You know, we hear and see all concerns and all of people's hearts, you know, well invested in Leonard's freedom. On the other side, we do have people who don't possess an ounce of truth, but go ahead and put a lot of libel and slander, trying to paint Leonard in another fashion. And even if it was true that everybody is the same person from 50 years ago, man, you know, like we'd all be, you know, something, one thing or another, you know. But the fact is that we're not this, and whatever mistakes or whatever errors, whatever things we've learned, make us better relatives. And it's not even my place to say what it is specifically. It's not my issue. It's not my my specific concern has to do with the way we're treating each other and how people are trying to drag Leonard backwards. When we can't do that. We cannot allow that. Those discussions about Leonard and AIM, American Indian Movement, need to remain off of social media. That's all I ask you. And believe with your heart, in your heart of hearts, that he is getting the help that he needs, specifically from his tribe, his family, and everybody on his defense. So many blessings, many blessings to every single one of you. And thank you for the time and space to share.
Well, Lydia, we're all thrilled, I think, and very, very important for us. And thank you for this, and TATANKA, the confirmation that whatever the legal situation, he is no longer in federal prison, and he is surrounded by people who love him, and that he loves, and that he is getting medical care. And those are the things that we really need to hear. TATANKA, did you want to say?
Yes, I think it's very important to understand that the reason there's no news is, you remember the mania that took over the United States in going after Osama bin Laden. And, you know, after the 9/11, and I mean, personally, there's so many questions around that and whether he had anything to do with 9/11 directly. But the point is that the FBI has been on a mission for 50 years, and they're unrepentant. And it makes every sense to me for us simply to know he's out. And the last word we heard is, because if you have to be careful for someone's safety and everything Lydia talked about, it would be important, especially in getting any kind of help from outside, that includes medical help, that in order to protect him, the less we know about his whereabouts, the better. Okay, so let's just leave it at that. And also with the plans and preparations that are going on in Indian country, until we hear that they need our help, the less anyone knows, the better, because there are people who wish him and wish all the Native people, anyone who, as Leonard said, I would encourage everyone, you can get it on, I'm sorry, I'm in my car, I'm with limited time on my hotspot, and but if you look up the statement, not just the statement that was made from the prison, but outside the prison, but the statement by his grandson that was about a month or two ago, and he read a letter from Leonard. And in that letter, of course, Leonard says, I certainly would like to be out of prison, but I am a free man, and how he expressed that they cannot take the fact of our origin. We know we came from Mother Earth. We know we returned to Mother Earth. The spirit cannot be taken, cannot be in prison. So it's a really strong, about 5 or 6 minute letter that Letter sent. And I would encourage you, I Googled it and found it easily. So it was about a month or two before the release. And it's just a beautiful statement. that his grandson read. And that's what I think, we should spread around. And also just remember that, like we said last week and was mentioned, just thank you to everybody who worked for his release over the last 50 years, because that all played into the spirit reaching Mr. Biden and taking the actions he did. I also know some things about what influenced him, but I want to make sure I can talk about it, because I think maybe the less known about that, the better too, because of the divide and conquer tactic of anybody who has other than what's heartfelt best for all humans, including Leonard, who is a hero and who has never confessed. So why would he ever agree to anything other than complete freedom? And he talked about the complete freedom of house arrest for him being freedom. He's welcome to be in his house with his family, getting the medical care, with his tribe, with people he loves. That's all he could ask for. And in a way, if you read his statement, he actually talked about, in a way, we should all be so blessed to be under house arrest and be safe. So you can look at that many ways.
Well, for a guy that has multiple children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, I'm sure that he will be surrounded with, great love and protection. I have no particular, I don't think any of us really need to know exactly where he is, other than to know that he's no longer in a federal prison. And how any human being survives 50 years in prison with his spirit and his intellect and his dedication intact is a great tribute to our species and, of course, primarily to him. So we are deeply grateful.
And I think the one thing I also want to speak to is that he talked about looking forward to painting more. He is an artist, and that statue of him was drawn from his own rendering of himself, the 12-foot statue of Leonard. And it started with his feet and the energy coming up from his feet from Mother Earth. And I think in this time on the planet facing this administration, that there is going to be a very powerful role for artists, for all the creative artists in this struggle, because we need to tap our imagination and creativity for the long haul here. And I just want to say that Leonard is among those artists whose spirit is not broken. And that's what we need as the basis of the truth that there is no separation in all the universe. So Takias and all our relations.
Well, fantastic. Thank you, Lydia. Thank you, Tatanka, for those reports. Does anyone, I do want to say, in the midst of this, we've had this MAGA drama of Trump paroling or whatever, pardoning all these people who did the January 6th attack. And to understand the depth, first of all, it's astounding to me in the middle of all this uproar that no one has talked about Leonard. It's great that he's under the radar, apparently. And the ferocity that's surrounding these pardons for these January 6th attackers has spread to the point where Lindsey Graham, the senator, the toady senator from South Carolina, who first attacked Trump and then has groveled at his feet, dared to mention somewhere in the media questioning the pardoning of these killers. I mean, there were, people killed, obviously, on January 6th. And Lindsey Graham made some sort of very slight questioning of the Trump pardon of these people. And he has been ripped to pieces in social media by the MAGA people. This is Lindsey Graham, who, I read some of the statements. They're terrifying what the MAGA people are saying about Lindsey Graham for daring to raise a question about the pardon of the January 6 people. And thankfully, Leonard's name has not turned up in any of that, and we hope that it stays out of it.
I don't even like commenting on anything to do with the orange-haired man, but whether this was a rumor or not, you cannot imagine Donald Trump going through 600 names with detail. He doesn't have the bandwidth to go, more than a few pages. So the rumor leaked was he said, screw it. after hearing what Lindsey Graham said and release them all. Now, that's probably what he wants people to think as well. It may be true, but the whole mind game is about give up. Anybody that resists him is only going to make it worse, right? That's kind of the message given. And so what you have is, I think as a movement, we have to study the predictability of response in order to get ahead of the response. AOC talked about this recently too with Jon Stewart, that the predictability of Democrats all the way through not counting the votes, not waiting until the final vote count was in, and the predictability of, seniority, the predictability of all the rules that we are played and have been played, as Greg Palast has said, for the longest time, but definitely documentable ever since the year 2000. And when you're predictable, you're more vulnerable. So we have to find the predictability factor of the forces that are antithetical to the mission we have here about democratic governance and about responding with the healing of the earth and the healing of each other. And so we'll bring that up again because I have some thoughts about it.
Right. Well, everybody, we all worked on this. This has been Leonard has been a major piece of our gatherings from day one, which is almost 5 years ago now. And all I need to know is he's out, he's with his family, and he's getting medical care. And he's got to be safe. That's our concern. Melissa Richardson Hall, please, very quickly. Anybody else want to jump in? Please do. I mean, it's just
Well, I
kind of
know
thing.
today's my birthday, and this is the best birthday present ever because I am mixed. I have some Cherokee and Navajo blood in me, and I'm so glad to see him released.
Well, happy birthday,
especially-
and you. It's nice to know you're healthy and happy as well. So thank you, Melissa. It's good to hear from you.
Can I ask one quick question? What can we do to help all the tribes now? How can we best serve to help you?
What can we do? Thank you, Melissa. Absolutely. TATANKA or LYDIA, is there any specific ask that Leonard's community has made? Oh, TATANKA, you slipped into being muted.
I basically said to Chase and Madonna and Takata and all the folks that I know, whenever you want our help, please ask and we'll get it. So
okay,
that's all I'll say.
Thank you. Barbara Wright. Barbara?
I was going to offer, keep him in your prayers. Keep him and and his family in your prayers. Keep him in your, when you think of him, put a good word to his name.
We will indeed. Absolutely. Lydia, thank you for that. Barbara?
Hey, Barbara, you're breaking up really badly. So yeah, try it without your video. Go ahead, please.
I said we need to thank the Creator for the fact that he's out and he's safe with his people and he will be well taken care of.
Oh, thank you for that. Absolutely. Does anyone else want to jump in here with Leonard? It's such a great thing to be able to have this.
Daniela is up.
Daniela, go ahead.
Yes, I just want to say that, of course, we're so grateful that Leonard is out at last. But also, you brought up what happened to Lindsey Graham. But this is happening to the two women senators, Barbara Murkowsky and Susan Collins, who not only decried the fact that these violent insurrectionists were let out, but they also voted to impeach Trump. These women are being beleaguered as much as Lindsey Graham or more because they've been, even though we don't like their conservative politics, they've been with us from the beginning against the insurrection and against voting to impeach Trump. So they're being horribly treated. Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowsky.
Thank you for that. From Maine and from Alaska, we appreciate that. But they're both Republicans, as apparently is Lindsey Graham. So thank you for that. Mimi, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Nice to be here. Happy New Year. This might be my first time this year with y'all. And on Dr. King's Day, that was that wonderful glimmer of hope that Leonard Peltier was going to be released. Many people here locally were not looking forward to that day. And I did go to an inauguration day rally against the new president. And that was just like the clouds were parting. It was absolutely amazing. And everyone here is so thankful for the generations of organizing to get him free. So thank you so much.
Yes, it really changed the nature of the day, didn't it? I mean, it suddenly became a very different day. It became Leonard Peltier and Martin Luther King Day, as opposed to the new guy, same as the old guy coming in, and we'll see that going forward. Thank you for that, Mimi. Mike Hersh.
Yeah, I just want to underscore that the Trump cult, I don't call them MAGA because they're not making America great again. They're a cult, and misogyny is a core principle of their cult. So the fact that they're attacking woman senators and Lindsey Graham doesn't surprise me. Again, anybody who questions a cult is going to get abused by the cult. And we need to be aware of the cultish behavior. And they're also predictable. And like TATANKA said, predictability is vulnerability. We know what they're going to do. They're going to go right for the jugular. And anybody who questions them becomes their prey. So we all have to stick together and stand up for the most vulnerable among us.
Absolutely, very well said. You know, I'm not a big fan of James Carville, but he put out a piece or saying that with this new administration, we have to do the rope-a-dope, which just let them, you know, bang away, and soon everybody who doesn't know the rope-a-dope. You have to see this phenomenal documentary film. It's been out, I think, 20 years, When We Were Kings. And it's about the thriller, the fight in the Rumble in the Jungle.
Rumble in the Jungle.
The Rumble in the Jungle when Ali fought George Foreman and let Foreman just bang away at him until he was exhausted. And then Ali knocked him out. It's an interesting strategy. And you know, these guys to say they've hit the ground running is an understatement, but there it is. It's one of the great documentaries ever made, this film, 1996. It's 30 years old. But you know, Carville's evocation of the rope-a-dope is really interesting. Far be it from me to try and explain it. You really got to see this movie. And watch it with a friend or something. It's one of the great pieces, not only of documentary filmmaking, but also of history. These guys have just really come out swinging, and you know, there's no surprise here. We'll just see what happens, and it will all for January 20th, 2025 will always be Leonard Peltier / Martin Luther King Day. And the rest of it is detail, as they
Harvey, you know, I'm glad you brought that up, because one similar thing is that Leonard took strength, as we all do when we're in that situation. Leonard took strength from all the support coming. He took spiritual strength for it. And in the Rumble in the Jungle, you see Ali out among the people, gathering the strength and the strength that came from the audience, from the spectators. And he basically, it was a triumph of spirit over, you know, the man that supposedly could never beat, you know, his opponent.
Right.
And using rope-a-dope simply to wear him out, and the timing of the knockout punch, it was
amazing.
Yeah,
and what they said, and this was the phrase, Ali Boumaier. Ali Boumaier. I remember, I'll never forget that, you know, and so listen, people, see that we have 80 people with us, for God's sakes. Mimi again, and then Mike Hersh, Mimi German, please.
Well, Mike was before me. Mike, go ahead.
Mike, go ahead.
Well, real quick, I think somebody said this before me, but I think it's very apropos. Trump getting back in is like when somebody drunk dials their ex and ends up spending a night that they later regret. And unfortunately, this is going to be like at least a 2-year stand. And heaven forbid, a 4-year stand with a horrible, abusive ex. Maybe that's the way to look at it.
I think Harvey took a little break. So
Mimi, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring it to everyone's attention that today, and this always has different meaning as time marches on here. Today is Holocaust Remembrance Day. And I say that it has different meanings now because it's no longer, I don't want to use the term Holocaust for everything that is bad in the world, but with genocides, with war, with nations killing nations, our empire striking everywhere it can. I just wanted to bring it up that today is Holocaust Remembrance.
Well, and of course we have Elon Musk literally telling the people of Germany to forget the Holocaust. That's what he's been saying. Yeah. You know, don't visit guilt on your grandparents' grave, blah, blah, blah. It's forget the Holocaust. And I think basically he's been telling people when he gave that Sieg Heil salute, completely unmistakable, essentially he's saying that, oh, I was just hailing a cab. I mean, you know, it's ridiculous. But this is the first time someone is with some kind of audience has told the German people just to forget it. He's not denying the Holocaust. He's just saying, oh, it's time to move on. Instead of never again, it's, oh, let's move on. You know, give me a break.
Well, it's a part of the agenda to rewrite history. Tell people to forget it. We'll write the history.
Yes, exactly. MYLA RESON, MYLA?
You know, when you brought up rope-a-dope, that was really interesting, Sluggo, because Keith Olbermann came out with a fabulous rant today. I don't know exactly what you would call it. I guess you could call it a rant. His suggestion is that new impeachment proceedings need to start immediately. And he likened the idea of bringing charges to the way that Ali used rope-a-dope, that every time you hit Trump with a new indictment and accuse him of yet another offense, that's a blow against him, and eventually it will result in...
Well, that's what, you know, Carville, who, you know, said, just let them wear themselves out. They have started way too fast. I mean, you don't start a 4-year whatever at the top of the food chain here and expect to last. I mean, this is ridiculous. Greenland, Panama, you know, you name it. But what's that?
Canada.
Canada. But, you know, I mean, he has done several things that are illegal just in his first few days. Right. And those were the things that that Keith Olbermann was talking about. I suggest that everybody tune in. He's got a YouTube channel, and he was just on fire today. So he's saying we've got to get those new impeachments underway.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. I got to tell you, though, for pure personal amusement and satisfaction, nothing has given me more pause than watching Melania smooch Gavin Newsom when she showed up at the airport in LA. I mean, you have got to see this. She didn't have that hat. You know, they called, what's his name? Jimmy Fallon called that hat she wore at the inauguration her border wall. And anyway, I won't go into the detail. It's just let it go. You guys got to see it anyway. Okay, well, look, Leonard, we could not be more thrilled. I wish to God that, you know, Steve Donziger had gotten taken care of, and Mamiya and the other people that were not pardoned or commuted. It's unfortunate, you know, and let's hope that in the next 4 years that somehow the Democratic Party sprouts a backbone. I know this is a lot to ask for, but a lot of what we're going through now is the responsibility of Joe Biden and his refusal to step aside when he should have, and, you know, the refusal of the Democrats to take strong stands that needed to be taken. Let's hope that a faction emerges from the Democratic Party around the leadership of Bernie Sanders, for God's sakes, or at least the example that actually stands for something. I mean, these guys are now going to come after Social Security and Medicare. And, you know, That is going to be really interesting to watch. And Merrick Garland, also from Paul Newman, Merrick Garland, I mean, did we have an attorney general in the last 4 years? I don't think so. Why did all these charges against the former president take so long and then disappear at the end? These are all questions we need to ask. The other question we need to ask, and this is a huge one, was the 24 election legitimate? Greg Palast couldn't be here today, but I will get him back. He put out a very strong piece with the great Thom Hartmann, for whom we need to be eternally grateful, him and Amy Goodman. But Greg's clear assertion is that the disenfranchisement that was a major campaign, very clear, very obvious, very high profile. The Republican campaign to disenfranchise as many people as they possibly could of color worked. And his assertion, which I will let him make on his own in the future, is that legitimately Kamala Harris won the election and would be in the White House today had it not been for the systematic disenfranchisement of millions of people of color. That is critical. Now, having lived through Ohio 2004, having seen Greg's reportage from Florida 2000, knowing what we saw in the 2010 election that resulted in gerrymandering the country beyond recognition, and the Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania questions in 2016. This is a question, if we're going forward and people are saying, oh, we will take back the Congress in 26, and the presidency in 28, you've got to have an election where people can actually vote in order to do that. And somewhere, sometime, somehow, we as a national constituency and the Democratic Party as whatever it is, if it's anything at all, is going to have to deal with fair elections. We had a fair election in 2020 largely because COVID required mail-in voting. And the mail-in voting actually worked in 2020. What are we going to be looking at in 24, 26, and 28? That's going to be something we will deal with on these gatherings going forward. And by the way, I prefer to call them gatherings as opposed to shows or meetings or whatever, or calls. These are gatherings, basically, and I hope we can continue with some strength. Someone had a hand up. Yes, this map is critical. These are the states. The red states there are the ones that had major disenfranchisement campaigns that actually worked and that really disenfranchised large numbers of people. And, you see New York up there, and New Jersey, which did go to Biden, but the down balloting was a whole other story. And this is the map that we are going to have to deal with if we think we're going to have a small d democratic cure for authoritarianism and fascism in this country. That's the reality. Okay, Mimi again, please. Mimi, go ahead.
Hi, this is Mimi She/Her in California. Mimi asks, you've gone on in the discussion, and that was really great discussion today. But this all stems from 2016 when Bernie Sanders was pushed aside. And yes, all of us who were there, I was there in Philadelphia for that. I mean, we're never going to recover from that, and neither is the country. This would have been a very different country if he'd become our president. It's firmly on the DNC, and the DNC played It's Her Turn with Kamala this time around as well. When there was genocide going on, we've all talked about this a lot. They did not pick a good candidate, and also they were not speaking about pocketbook issues. I have lived in Pennsylvania, so I say pocketbook at time. And really, the DNC really needs to embrace the 21st Century Economic Bill of Rights written by Harvey Kaye with Alan Minsky. I believe Representative Ro Khanna has signed on to that, and the DNC needs to give that more attention. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Very well stated, Mimi, and keep with us, please. Sandy Bolzenius in Columbus, Ohio, and then we'll go back to Daniela. Sandy? You're muted. Hold on here.
There we go. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Good.
Both of us are trying to unmute me at the same time. Okay, I just have a suggestion. Like you said, I mean, we actually do know what's going to happen. Dictators, this is what they do. So I think, first of all, one of the things that I think has been our strength of progressives and maybe even corporate Dems, I don't know, is that we're not backing down. You know, when Hitler took over, they were backing down every single, they had to, no choice. And we're not. But the other thing is, I think we need to make it very clear, any of these groups need to make it really clear that we are not violent. We don't agree with violence. We're not going to go with violence, because this is what oftentimes dictators are looking for. They're looking for us to be violent so they can call the militias out and arrest us and do all this. So I'm suggesting that we come out strongly and say, if it's somebody who's being violent, they're not with us. They're not working with us.
Well, you raise a very important point about knowing what they're going to do. We know that at some point soon they will burn the Reichstag.
Right, exactly.
And so what just like the shot that took Trump's ear, we know this is coming. So the question, and the commitment to nonviolence is critical, but we know we're upcoming. There will be some event that Trump will use to declare a dictatorship and to suspend the Bill of Rights.
And that's why we need to come out in front of it and say, it's not coming from the progressives, because that's who they're going to be coming after. And that's what happened to the labor movement so much. One stone thrown, one bullet fired, and they blamed it on us. They blamed it on the unionists. So I'm just saying that we do that. And I've got a Veterans for Peace person here. Got to go. I'll be back.
Okay. Thank you, Sandy, and best wishes. Daniela, and then Mike Hersh again, and then Steve Caruso.
Yes. I totally agree with Sandy. We have to make it very clear, as Martin Luther King did, that this is a nonviolent movement. She's absolutely correct. But I also wanted to just tell you that as soon as I saw Vigilantes Incorporated by Great Palace, as soon as I got the letter from IT PhDs saying that we should have a hand count of paper ballots in the swing states, I wrote and called everyone nonstop. Jamie Raskin, I got Senator Whitehouse, a direct email. I called, I spoke, I wrote, I carried on, and nobody, not Jamie Raskin, not Whitehouse, there is not my own Senator Cory Booker, who's Black, and I told him about how the Black votes were stolen. I spoke to his assistant at length. I never any answers from any of them.
No. And now we're hearing from this guy, their attorney, their election attorney, Mark. I'm
just trying to finish my sentence.
Okay, go ahead, please.
I don't understand, and it's obvious that something fishy's going on, because none of these senators that you would expect to care would answer, even though I'm a professor with an American Book Award and fairly well known. I couldn't get any answers.
Well, the Democratic Party has refused to face the issue of disenfranchisement for a quarter century.
Yes.
And the theory has been that they don't want people of color to vote, because then they'll get liberals or real activists like AOC and Bernie Sanders in the primaries. And so, we know that in 2016, as Mimi S. mentioned, that Bernie was stolen the nomination in 2016 and probably in 2020 by disenfranchisement.
I wrote
disenfranchisement for the mainstream Democrats is a double-edged sword, and they will not face it, even though it's responsible for Trump now being in the White House. Okay, Daniela, then Mike, then Steve. Oh, you're muted. I can't
Daniela, please unmute.
Yeah, okay, go ahead, Daniela, then Mike, then Steve.
I wrote to all AOC, Bernie, I called all of the very progressive people, and none of them answered either.
Right. They will not deal with the issue that Greg Palast has raised so systematically since 2020 about disenfranchisement. They wouldn't deal with it in 2020. We were shown very clearly.
Not even AOC. None of them.
Right. Al Gore was the one in 2020. Greg showed that Jeb Bush had stripped the voter rolls of 90,000 suspected voters of color, And that was the difference, of course, in an election decided by 537 votes. And Al Gore, as vice president, presiding over the Congress, refused to allow the Black Caucus to challenge the Florida Electoral College delegation. And we still live that. Instead, the Democrats spent the next 20 years screaming at Ralph Nader, who had nothing to do with George W. Bush winning Florida in 2000. This is the issue that we're going to have to continue to deal with. Mike Hersh, Steve Caruso, and then Melissa. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I want to thank Daniela for bringing up these things, and I feel your anger. It reminds me of how we were working to impeach George W. Bush and Dick Cheney for lying us into war in Iraq. And some friends of mine, and I went with them to meet with my then Congressman Chris Van Hollen, now a senator, with tens of thousands of signatures from his district. And his legislative aide basically just threw the petitions away. And the reason was, and this is true about the election rigging as well, they're on lockdown. They have orders from their leadership to not comment on it, not talk about it. And like Sluggo mentioned, it's because they want to be able to control the primaries. And Sluggo, I have to correct you or disagree with you a little bit when you said that you hope the Democratic Party gets a backbone. They sure show a lot of backbone and sharp teeth when it comes to attacking progressives.
Yes.
They're spineless like jellyfish when it comes to standing up against fascism and corporatism. And that's the rot at the center of our politics. And that's what those who care about small d democracy and small r republicanism are fighting against. And it goes back to, I think Louis Brandeis said, you can either have highly concentrated wealth or a democratic republic, but you cannot have both. And those words are so prophetic. And we were mentioning Greg Palast. One of his bestsellers is The Best Democracy Money Can Buy. And my God, does that explain what's going on? And I'll close with this. The Brennan Center did a study, and it showed that when it comes to issues before the Congress, things that are overwhelmingly popular among the public always lose when they come up against the interests of the oligarchs. And Bernie Sanders has been warning us about oligarchy for decades now. And the oligarchy, Bernie fought the oligarchy and the oligarchy won.
Yeah, well, not yet. It ain't over till it's over, but thank you, Mike.
That's right. That's right. The oligarchy is winning so far, but it's just like Mother Nature always bats last. The people, we the people, have our ups coming up. So it's time for we the people to get it together and to lead the political leaders, because the political leaders ain't leading.
Right. Absolutely. Steve, thank you for that, Mike. Steve Caruso.
Are we going to live in Potter's Field, or are we going to live on Turtle Island? Harvey, you're going to mention something about a election lawyer. Is that Mark Elias?
Mark Elias. He caved immediately. He was supposed to be the big heavy hitter of democracy for the Democrats, and he just, put down any idea that the 24 election was something other than legitimate.
Trump's using attacking the immigrants as his platform of getting his agenda across, but Obama removed more immigrants than he did in his term. So this whole thing is just a big show. And we know who's beating a drum behind him or whispering in his ear like a snake is Mr. Miller. So thanks.
Right. Well, and we're going to talk in a few minutes. We're going to switch over to talk about the environment. Nobody has done more damage to us in the environmental movement than Gavin Newsom, the erstwhile Democratic governor, so-called, of California. I'm going to go to John Steiner, who hasn't spoken yet, then Melissa and MYLA. Go ahead, John. Oh, you're not unmuted. Now you're disappeared. Where'd you go? Oh, there you are. There. Hold on. There.
Thanks for bringing it back.
Very well spoken. Okay, go ahead.
So my question is then, what then shall we do?
Well, these calls, I mean, these
But
gatherings, we gotta
is there does there want to be a call that or a separate call that just focuses excuse me on the issues that we've just been talking about for the last
yes. As soon as I can get Greg back on.
and how to move forward, not necessarily Greg, but given the spinelessness of the Democratic Party and the progressive, relatively small constituency in this country. And so we move from, and obviously with you, Mike, and Social Democrats of America, there are a lot of ideas out there and a lot of effort to figure out a constituency with power, but it ain't there yet. And it may not be there, but I think it's a conversation, Harvey, that wants to be had over the next few months.
Well, you're 100% right, and I do want to do it, and we will do it. So,
all right,
you'll be part of it. So, thank you for that, John Steiner. Melissa, you're going to speak again, and then MYLA and David Saltman is with us. So, Melissa, go ahead.
Okay, after seeing Fahrenheit 9/11, there's no question for me what's going on. My question is, how do you advocate when you know that it's an experiment, and how long can they keep out?
Well, that's a good question. Leonard Peltier kept it up for 50 years. So I think that's the inspiration we have. Thank you for that, Melissa. MYLA and then Salty, and then Mimi's come back. Go ahead, MYLA Reson. Thank you, Melissa.
Thanks, Harvey. I just wanted to point out that we invited a number of people here today to be part of a new ecology network, I suppose. We'll figure out a gathering of the people who will collaborate and work together to save our world.
Yeah. Well, we've got 3 minutes.
Okay, so that's why I just raised my hand, because that there are people here who came for that purpose.
Yeah, I see Jack Ida's with us, and we were at 3:00 Pacific time. We'll jump in on that. Just the last couple quick comments here.
And who at any rate, I just wanted to say that we're hoping that Mimi German will be writing some poetry specifically for Earth Day that we will feature on April 22nd. Okay, I got a thumbs up from Mimi. Thank you, Mimi.
All right, thank you. Dave Saltman in freezing New York there. What's up, bro?
Yeah, hi. Good to see you. I hope you're well and not toasting, Harvey.
Well, the good news is, which we'll reiterate, is that it has rained in Southern California.
Good.
Substantial. Now we have mudslides, but the question then is, should human beings really be living in Southern California? But it has.
Yeah, that's a good question. I just want to say, here to John Steiner. I don't have the answer, but maybe this is a way we can think about it, or at least start. I was very impressed with the essentially the class action suit that David Boies took to the Supreme Court a couple of years ago. Unfortunately, they did not grant certiorari, but he was attacking the Electoral College winner takes all rule, which was a very specific, clean sort of class action type of act. And I was thinking, this is obviously this massive disenfranchisement. There's clearly an aggrieved class here from the legal point of view. The question is, who do you sue? Because it was a lot of different organizations in a lot of different states and so on and so on. So it just occurred to me, what about if we, and please shoot this down with all dispatch, what if we did a class action suit, not against the Republicans for doing this, because we'd never be able to, they'd say, but it wasn't us, it was those little organizations here and there. What about if we did a class action suit against the Democratic Party for failing to protect us, failing to protect the enfranchisement of the voters, the Democratic voters? I rest my non-case.
Of course, the question is, can you do a class action suit against the Democrats if they have no class? Sorry, I couldn't resist that. Anyway, yes. Well, Dave Saltman is the author, by the way, or introduced us to the the remand that happened in a capital crime case in Canada, which I assume I know that Chase Ironeyes heard that. Maybe it had an impact on getting Leonard released to his tribe. We'll see.
I would sure love to take credit for that.
Well, it's all yours, bro. Okay, thank you. John raised his hand again, then we'll go to Mimi because John wants to get
David, a quick response. It might be we want to bring Ray McClendon in, given his relationship to the NAACP, and again, something to talk about when we have a longer conversation.
Right.
Great point.
Well, there needs to be a powerful grassroots movement to step forward for voter rights. I mean, this has gone by the board. The Supreme Court threw out the 65 Voter Rights Act and sustained citizen action. We clearly do not have we have a system where it's $1, one vote, and that Elon Musk has 400 billion votes.
But Harvey, when you say we need to, that's where we start the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
All
okay,
right.
Thank you, John and Dave. We're just past the hour. We're going to go into our environmental mode, but we got Mimi. Go ahead, Mimi.
I just want to put it out there. First of all, Dave, I love the idea of suing the DNC or whoever it was, all of them, for not protecting our vote and not protecting the citizenry. So there's that. But I did want to just drop this out there. You know, we talk about what can we do, and we talk about nonviolence as, you know, the continuing way. And as somebody who's been on the streets in Portland for years in protest against the Proud Boys, and I'm talking face to face, you know, all of us here in Portland, it's sort of a rhetorical question, but are you willing to put yourself out there when we have full-geared Nazis and neo-Nazis and white supremacists on our streets, walking through as they did in Nashville just before the election, a couple times in Nashville. And no one was there to disengage or block these Nazis. They were calling themselves Nazis, look like Nazis, and, you know, if you look like a Nazi, you're a Nazi. And again, I know we got to move on, but I just wanted to put that out there, something to talk about later, because that's coming.
Yeah, well, it's here. It's here. We got it now.
The marches haven't begun yet. The taking over the streets in full force. I figure it'll be here next week, you know, at the rate they're going.
It'll be here immediately as they burn the Reichstag.
Yeah.
That's the event that we know is coming. And then these guys that he pardoned them, I assume it's almost all guys, I keep thinking there's an animated version of George Orwell's Animal House. And in the Animal House, that's the Belushi movie, Animal Farm, not Animal House. Everybody should see Animal House, but Animal Farm, the animated version, they raise some dogs. The pigs who take over raise some dogs. And these dogs are totally loyal to the oligarchy. And that's what these MAGA guys who got pardoned are going to be. Anything that Donald Trump says, they're going to do. So, you know, and they're not exactly nonviolent. So, all right, well, listen, thank you for that. That was an amazing hour. We have 82 people with us, and we're going to go into phase 2 here. We want to form the ECO-BROADCAST Network. That name is up for grabs, but we want to expand the reach into the internet of our ecological stuff and also the stuff that follows. The ecological, and which also means eco also means economic. And to expand our reach through the internet, we've been talking about this a lot at Pacifica, and this is to become finally an engine, a pan-internet engine of broadcasting progressive stuff, starting with the eco, environment, and economy. Ruth Strauss, you have a hand. Let's get to you, and then we'll go deeper into this.
Yeah, thanks, Harvey. I missed the first hour because I went to that webinar with Stephen Donziger, and it turns out it was put on by a group called Climate Defiance, and it's a bunch of young people. So it's probably a good, place to network with, and they are planning to go and block the entrances to the DNC this weekend. And, they already have blocked other entrances to other things. So that's good. But I wanted to make one other point to people, and I'm sorry, it may be off topic, but this DEI business, they have issued a declaration that in the American Oncology Society, they are no longer going to have DEI in drug trials. I mean, like they say, you cannot make this stuff up. And it's really terrible. I mean, I've been going to national meetings for cardiology for years, and the whole push was to get people of color, Hispanics, Pacific Islanders, et cetera, into these trials so that the trials would be more inclusive. And now these people are going to be taken out by Trump fiat. So please, call, and it's under the FDA. Call the FDA, call your Congress people. This is really bad, and they will move it on to other things. But cancer drugs, I mean, come on. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Ruth, and keep with us on this. Really, I want to move ahead with this. We're going to shift gears slightly. We see Doug Wood is here from WBAI, has a great environmental show there. Jack Ide is with us from KPFK. We want to go deeper now into the mechanics of promoting an environmental network, a network that will promote and go finally trans internet, because we're dissatisfied in part with the reach of radio through Pacifica, and we now have Substack coming on board, and we have Blue Sky coming on board. The question is now, can we build our reach? Steve Caruso, our fabulous engineer, he and I have been talking about this for a while. Steve, you had your hand? Do you want to jump in and talk about this a bit?
Actually, I was going to bring up the fact, following up on Dr. Strauss's thing, that Nancy Naparco stated earlier that they stopped grants for cerebral palsy. All that stuff just stopped just recently. So that's all I wanted to add there. But yeah, so, we're a planet. We all got to live on a planet. We got to stop the nationalism and start thinking about planet conscious and not so much individual greed and arm and getting, if that makes any sense. Thanks.
Yes, indeed it does. And so we have a bunch of us from Pacifica, MYLA RESON, my co-host on the Solartopia show, Doug Wood, Jack at BAI, Jack also at KPFK, and we have LIBBE HALEVY, who's joined us, who has been doing the nuclear hot seat for years now, and is a veteran of 3 Mile Island. I'm a post 3 Mile Island veteran. I went to Central Pennsylvania in January of 1980 after TMI, but we are now concerned about building a better network for getting our stuff out. Put it pure and simple. We do these radio shows, and we reach whoever we reach, and we do these articles, and we do these podcasts, and where do they go? So what we want with great engineers like Steve Caruso to be able to build the physical network. I threw out the term ECO-BROADCAST network, eco meaning ecology as well as economy, because one thing I'm going to throw this in, is a piece I just started working on. If Trump wants to attack solar energy, solar panels, and wind turbines, as well as batteries, and also put up huge tariffs against electric cars, the only thing he's going to do in the long run is bankrupt the United States, because the rest of the world is going to go to Chinese solar panels and Mitsubishi wind turbines, and China is now mass producing, and they've way outstripped Tesla on this. They're mass producing an electric sedan that is very comfortable, very serviceable, and sells for less than $20,000. Now, Trump is putting 100% tariff on it, but you can't buy an electric car in the United States for less than 30 or 35. If he's banning, it's 3 letters, BYD, I think, bring your dog is what I remember. BYD, I think, is the electric car that's selling in China. they're marketing a very solid electric car for under 20 grand. We won't be able to buy it in the United States, but the rest of the world is going to buy it, and they're not going to buy Chevrolets or Toyotas if they can get a BYD for less than 20 grand. We're going to be out of business, and our electric costs are through the roof, as in California, thanks to Gavin Newsom, who has completely destroyed the solar panel business in this state. So, here we are, and we want to get that word out. And, part of this is just logistical. How do we build our reach? And Libby, you've been doing a podcast for God knows how long. And Doug, you have a fabulous show at BAI, and Jack, you have a great show at KPFK. How can we put our heads together to expand our reach through the internet and not be dependent on the major media, as we say? Libby, go ahead, please.
This is right in alignment with work that I am doing. By the way, it's 13 and a half years I've been doing Nuclear Hot Seat every week. But this is right in alignment because I know there's so many platforms out there, but how does one focus one's energy and come up with something coordinated that's going to work? And I knew I needed help with that, and that's when I found out that SBDC, which is the Small Business something or another, it's a free service that is all throughout Southern California, and you can contact them, and they will, first of all, put you in touch with someone who will triage what you are trying to do. Some social media expert will say, what have you got? What are you trying to do? They're mostly geared towards small businesses, but I'm sure they can do something with this. And my goal is, how do I incorporate Instagram and YouTube and all of the other platforms that are out there without making myself crazy and without wasting energy? So
exactly right.
So
exactly.
I've just entered the pipeline for them to have my triage input, but I would encourage anyone to find the SBDC in your area, and they've got offices all over the place. My basic one is in Pasadena. They switched me over to Glendale because of the fires. There's such stress on the system there. But I want to put this out first because we've all got all of these different crazy things that we do or we try to do, or we think, oh, the kids know how to do this, but we don't.
Right.
But we've got to be the kids. We've got to learn this because this is the way we build our networks. This is how we build, if you will, a national Algonquin roundtable echo chamber of our talking points, so that what we have to say and who we point to and how we coordinate the stories can come together in a way so people are hearing it in more than one place. Because that's the way the nuclear industry does it. They've got, anyway, I can go into that a lot more. But what I want to say, yes, small business development centers. Thank you, MYLA, for putting that up. They have offices all over. I emailed them and I said, a friend of mine had this. This is what she had. How do I get in the pipeline? I did that on Friday. They got back to me this morning with a list, with the name of a person and a list of when her availabilities are, so I can set this up. It's all free. These are all volunteers coming in to work with us to help us solve the problems. And I would suggest that that would be a great starting point, just so that we know where our muscles are and how we can build them. Because we're all great content people. We all know what we're talking about. It's a matter of how do we pull it together and make it a network, as you said, but one where we can say, oh, and now you can, go to Harvey's program over there, or go to somebody's podcast over here, and here are the links and whatever, so that we're a coordinated messaging unit as opposed to our individual voices.
Thank you for that. We're joined by Stephen Starr from XR Radio, also a Pacifica broadcaster. MYLA RESON, you got your hand, and let's go to Doug, Jack, Stephen. But go ahead. Dave Saltman, you got his hand up. Go ahead, MYLA.
Thank you so much. Harvey, and I've talked to a lot of you about it. I approached the Pacifica organization that Harvey and I are part of, and Jack and Libby, you have your show Nuclear Hot Seat on a number of the Pacifica affiliates. There are 5 Pacifica sister stations. Doug Wood is at WBAI in New York, and we've gotten the green light to put together a day of programming for Earth Day, April 22nd, 2005. And we're thinking of organizing this programming to actually start a network of content producers and people who create, who write, who produce, who create media to come together to collaborate. And I'm thinking beyond Earth Day 2022, April 22nd, that we can start working together in a broader way. So I'm going to set up a Discord for people to collaborate. There were a lot of people who were invited today, and I'm wondering if you were invited to talk about the programming for April 22nd, if you could raise your virtual hand so that we can see how many of you are actually here. And Daniela, were you invited for the environmental programming for Earth Day?
Yes, I've been an environmentalist for years. I have a YouTube channel
Wonderful.
full of beautiful nature poems to save the environment. I have a whole website about poetry, but I've also been a trained leadership speaker, and I've given thousands of talks. And in the old days, I was on BAI all the time with my book, Women Against War. I read whole stories on BAI. I did a lot of BAI stuff.
Lovely.
Great.
So
Great. Thank
I'm
you.
wondering if we can just kind of go around and hear, just as you said, Harvey, hear from Doug Wood and Jack.
Well, Dave Saltman, David Saltman has got a tremendous history in broadcasting, and then Doug Wood, Jack Ide, if you want to join in, and Steve Starr. Go ahead, David, please. Thank you, MYLA.
Well, what I'm hearing, it sounds to me like you want to reinvent the wheel. You've got a network. It's called Pacifica. Where was it? What happened? It's like saying, geez, I wish we had a good borough outside of Manhattan, and there was Brooklyn, and it wasn't, and Brooklyn it looked like a disaster. It looked like the Pacifica Network does right
David,
now.
it's a caucus, David.
Yeah, but Pacifica has been, there's a discussion, this has been raised by Jim Dingman as well, but Pacifica has been primarily radio, and we have wanted to build, as you say, David, and I've talked about this, a broader presence.
I understand that. I'm saying it's like saying the Bronx is a disaster, but the Bronx will rise again because you've got the bones there.
Yes, we do.
You've got microphones. You've got technically trained people. And let me suggest this. Remember Air America?
Yeah.
The bones of that are still out there somewhere. That was Gore's thing. My old friend from ABC used to run that thing. He unfortunately passed away. He was a brilliant executive producer. You're not that far away from it. You can go video. It's very cheap these days, and so on. I'm just saying, what I'm really saying is produce it, and they will come.
Exactly. That's what we're trying to do. Good points. Thank you. Doug Wood and then Jack Ide.
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me here. I'm intrigued with this idea because I think that there's an audience out there for our programming if we feed it to them in the right way. And I think this can be complementary to Pacifica and not compete with Pacifica. My goal would be to bring new people in, and if they migrate over to Pacifica, that's great. If they just stay with the eco programming, for a while, I suppose that's all right. One of the no secret to anybody here, one of the big challenges for Pacifica is money, and I believe there might be funding available for for this kind of a thing that is a joint venture of all the eco programmers in the Pacifica world. The wheels are turning here, Harvey, and okay. I don't have any finished thoughts here except to say I think it would be a really great opportunity for us to combine our forces and each person contributing what they do. Our program, Green Street, is now running not just on BAI, of course, but we're on KPFA and KPFT as well, KPFK as well, and we have our we have our website and we have our podcast and all that kind of stuff. But I think somebody said earlier, break it down into 1 minute bits. I agree 100%. People don't have a half hour necessarily, especially younger people, to listen to a radio show. So anyway, I'll leave it there. I'm excited to brainstorm these. I love new ideas and happy to be part of it.
Good, thank you. I much appreciate Jack, and then Stephen.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks everyone for having this discussion. Also, I think Lydia Ponce, who has the show Be a Better Relative, should come up here and share with us. The problem with Pacifica that we're experiencing at the KPFK right now, they basically took all of the programmers who are represented from KPFK here off the air because we weren't raising enough money for their bottom line. And so that's a problem. Become sort of a pay-to-play thing. We're still, all of us are in discussions to get back on the air in different ways, but it's problematic in pretty much every way. So I think, so I already, my show, Eco Justice Radio, we're featured on a bunch of different other Pacifica radio stations, and we probably will get back on the lineup. They've been playing our shows. I've been telling them, we're doing all this content on the fires that are happening in our backyard, and they're not airing the show. It doesn't make any sense. But hey, so I wouldn't just throw, Pacifica down as like, we're just going to get behind them, because we really need an alternative that we control. And so I have my show out on podcast, and, we don't control those. We got censored last year and suddenly disappeared from Spotify. All of my shows on YouTube turned private. The Apple Podcast took all of our shows off since 2022. Why did they do it? I don't know yet, but we can guess. There were a few guests who they didn't like, and that's what we face here. So we need to have, I don't know what we need to have, frankly, but the idea, there's a bunch of different networks that exist on the internet that, like Progressive Radio, which I think you're on, Solartopia.
Well, this gathering is just for information. This gathering is a rebroadcast on the Progressive Radio Network, Gary Knowles Network, on Thursday evening, and has been for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
So that's an alternative audience that we do have.
It's a great example there, and there's other ones. And I know Gary Knowles had his problems with Pacifica as well.
That's an understatement.
And but so I think we should have this discussion. I think working together is a good idea.
Yes, and again, I just read yesterday that what's his name, Zuckerberg, is now going to make Facebook a MAGA outlet, basically. And so there you go. And Elon Musk bought Twitter. But then here comes Blue Sky.
Yeah, these social media. I mean, my Twitter accounts. If you manage your Twitter accounts, you can see what you need to see on these things. You can, if you figure out how to game the algorithm to a certain extent, you can use these things to your good. I think getting off of them altogether is a personal decision, and sometimes it's a good decision. But is our content being seen on those? That's really the problem. So that's
you don't know. That's right. Stephen, Lydia, and then Daniela again. Stephen, go ahead.
I just gracefully defer to Lydia first.
Lydia, please. You've been gracefully deferred to. Lydia.
Oh, thank you. Yes. I just got home. Thank you, Stephen, for that. The issue here is that, I was just speaking with Stephen earlier, is that we're not in right relations with the Indigenous people. And there are many of us who are in land back campaigns or in campaigns to defend the water. We have different ceremonies that we attend. And with all due respect, to pull that all together, I'm going to say that we really need to have this Indigenous led, and be it in the 4 directions, so no one feels left out. In addition to that, definitely bring the youth in, hear what they have to say, and bring some of the old tried and true, the ones who wrote the book, wrote a poem, wrote a play, just everything that has to do with defense and honoring and protecting Earth Mother. And I'm going to say that the boost that we've had at Be a Better Relative is that we were altruistic in our endeavors to meet up with friends to do mutual aid. And the question was, at the neighborhood council here in Venice. Are you providing donations to the unhoused? Yeah, we don't discriminate. If the people are unhoused from the fires, or unhoused now because of the mudslides, or unhoused because the economy, whatever the reason is, it's not of our concern. We want to make sure that people have what they need to get along in their day over a week to a month. And basically, I think that's the formula that we've been using, and we've been using pretty much the humanitarian efforts, and not to take selfies and not to be one and done like some of these temporary mutual aid hubs are. We're food not bombs. We've been food not bombs since 2009. So with that, I know that there's other people who have been at it longer, and I would look to them for their sage advice. However, we really do need to get the indigenous local tribal people involved. And thank
So
you.
do you have a network that would
I
pick
do.
up
I do, that we can
our
invite them.
environmental feeds? And what we need, I think, is a hub that would distribute our content to all potential media outlets that will run it. And in Blue Sky, Substack, all the the usual PRN, Pacifica, which has 250 affiliates. All these groups, we need to have a hub where we can post our stuff,
right,
our podcasts, our broadcasts, and our articles, to have them then resent, like Libby's podcast, to have them resent, including your Indigenous network.
Is it possible to have a couple of town halls online so we don't have to drive to get to these gatherings? We really need to talk about first and foremost the gutting of CEQA and the unhinging and deregulation of NEPA and EPA. And we really need to have a discussion about hydrogen. And we really need to have a discussion about what clean energy really looks like. And whether we're for or against, or we don't know, we shouldn't be too embarrassed to say we don't know enough about it. But what I do know is that we have to remove the division between YIMBY and NIMBY, because the people I deal with are either pro-earth, pro-water, clean air, nutritious food, and have a great deep ingrained sense of humanitarianism and grace and compassion. I don't want to deal with political parties. I don't want to deal with how somebody butters their tortilla or their bagel or whatever. It doesn't matter. What matters is that we're all facing the same Project 2025, and that we need to show up as better relatives. But I thank you for your time, and I'd be more than happy to put those town halls together. We have some really good people.
MYLA has called one already for April 22nd, but we maybe we'll have a prior as well. So let's keep at that. Stephen Starr,
April 22nd is not a town hall, Harvey.
Okay, well,
all right. So first of all, thank you for having me. And Lydia, it was great to hear you just now talking about priorities. I don't really have a whole lot to add that isn't being said by others, but there are 80 plus people on this Zoom right now, and this I'm sure of. There has never been, ever, not in my lifetime, and I'm not a young man anymore, a better time for the emergence of a very strong, progressive, hardcore, environmentally focused, ecologically focused, biodiversity focused. Yes to Lydia's comment about Indigenous-led. There has never been a better time in my lifetime than right now. The opposition is crystal clear. The maniacs are on the loose. It's the best possible time for us to be rising in a media apparatus that works. What that apparatus is, I leave that to better minds. I can tell you that I, along with some other folks, have been working on a decentralized network for many years, which is about to emerge. It's called Freenet. It's called freenet.org if you want to look it up online and learn about it. It is a contradiction to big tech, but it's not ready. It is not ready in the immediate future. It is ready in some months. Having said that, look at the brain trust that you're staring at online right now. Look around you. Look at these people, all of you. You're all media, experts in so many ways. If we can't figure out together how to bring forward these voices, in concert with each other, then it's on us, because the opportunity is here. So I am complete. Thank you.
Well, thank you. For our GREEP calls, Steve Caruso has been the go-to guy. We have been on YouTube. We just got in with Substack somehow. We have freepress.org, which is a great website. I got bounced from a Daily Kos 15 years ago. I still haven't figured out why, but so we're all used to getting bounced from Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff. We can't get into the major papers, the New York Times, the LA Times, the Washington Post. They won't publish our op-eds usually. So we have got to form PRN. Like I say, I've been on for God knows how long, and it has its reach. Pacifica, Doug and Jack and Steve, and Michael, we all know what a rocky ride that is. So, this is what we want to sort of collate as best we can with some kind of central service that gets our stuff out. And MYLA, you say April 22nd. How would you characterize what you want to do, MYLA Reson, on April 22nd?
Well, on second thought, I guess you could characterize it as a town hall. Earth Day started many years ago as a kind of a teach-in. That was the proposal, to have teach-ins all over. I've been looking a little bit at the history of Earth Day. Perhaps some of you know that history better than I, but I guess you could characterize it as a town hall. The idea here, and Lydia, I think that I mentioned to you, I was really hoping that at the very beginning that the planning would include Indigenous youth. I was hoping that we could reach out and bring in some of the youth runners from why am I drawing a blank here, from Standing Rock, the wonderful youth runners who came out to Santa Monica to talk to us. But I would really like to see more youth involved in this project that I have proposed, which would be a day of programming focusing on the environment that would be offered to all 5 of the Pacifica radio stations, and as well as the over 250 Pacifica affiliate stations. And I'm thinking that there is so much content that I've been looking at so many wonderful programmers who aren't with us here today, but who from Minnesota. There's a Indigenous-led radio station that is part of the White Earth Reclamation. I'm trying to remember the exact title of it, but there's a wonderful radio station there, and they may be joining us for the Earth programming. And and I know that LIBBE and Harvey and I are particularly interested in making sure that we carry the message of not nuking the environment. The climate. One of the issues that I grapple with constantly is that there are so many young people on the left who have bought into the notion that somehow nuclear power is carbon free, which is a lie. And and unfortunately, many people involved with Pacifica and other left media seem to be embracing the idea of small mythical small modular reactors. And I'm wondering, I saw, Jack, you shook your head, and Libby, Libby, do you encounter many young people who need to be disabused of the notion of nuclear power being a solution for our climate emergency?
The youth I know are fighting from the lithium plant up on Red Mountain. They're still defending the land from being copper mined for Apache Stronghold. And then there's a new pipestone fight and battle. We're waiting for the word for us to go out there to help defend and honor and protect the land, the very land where the rock quarry is, in regards to the Chanupa, the stone that's used to make the sacred pipe for the Lakota, Dakota, and Nakota, the Plains Indians who use that space. The government is looking to put a natural gas, I believe, pipeline underneath it. And instead of doing a Standing Rock thing, they're doing a very much an orientation, a stronger and better, to not be so quickly infiltrated like Standing Rock was. And lastly, the youth that I know are really culturally, totally culturally ingrained. They're living their lives off and on the res, and and doing all these things with their families and with their tribes. So, when we say youth, we have to also denote whether or not they're minors that need to travel with their families. And we're talking about a lot of people who don't have the economic means to bring out, everyone. And at the same time, if it's going to be a Zoom, then there would be or could be some guidance. But I strongly advise that we do something in person as well, because we do have the biggest population of Indigenous peoples, South and Central Americas and all around the world. We have it right here in Los Angeles, let alone Southern California. So to answer your question, it wouldn't be easy for them to, it would be easy to get involved, but they'd have to gauge as to what. And we should have some kind of stipend or honorarium for them, because we don't want to be extractive of their time and their knowledge and or their skill set. And some of them would love to be educated and updated on the nuclear struggle and the arms that we use to hug, not to create nuclear arms. So it's a mixed bag answer, but everybody's in different places and spaces in their battle and their war cry for the land, the water, and their tribes. So it'd be wonderful to send an invitation out in the next couple of weeks, like mid-February, in all fairness.
Okay. Oh yeah, there you go. There's the old Survival Sunday. Alex Smith has been waiting for a while. Alex hasn't spoken yet. No, Alex, go ahead.
Okay, well, first of all, I think we're at sort of a crisis of consciousness and media, so that many of us produce longer pieces. I produce a 1-hour show every week, and I think there's a dwindling number of people who are prepared to put that amount of time into this message. So, we may have to chop things up into 1-minute segments and get them out on TikTok if you really want to find out where hundreds of millions of people are. So that's something I'm considering. I think we could broaden our radio reach if we could reach out into sympathetic allies in Europe, in Australia, in Canada, to just try and get more of our material, if it's not too US oriented, onto other countries, especially during these rather dark times that we're about to experience. And the other final thing I would say is that if we could get some sort of army of people, whether they're retired people or young people, hopefully young people, to comment and post and point to our work on Facebook, on Twitter, God help them, definitely on Blue Sky. Just get it out there so that more people will find our work, at least, because the algorithms won't do it. I tried YouTube for a year, and I can tell you that it would barely find my own program when I titled the actual name of the program in quotes. It still didn't show up near the top of the screen. So the algorithms can kill you on certain media. So you have to invest your time wisely, in my opinion there. But I think we could get these people out, like an army of people, to point to our work and try and get some more listeners and viewers and readers for our blogs. And that's what I got.
Alex, where do you run your show?
Well, it's on about 60 Pacifica stations, I believe.
What's it called?
It's called Radio EcoShock. It's on 107 nonprofit stations total. If you go to ecoshock.org and click on stations, it lists out all the stations that it plays on. But I also have it, it's actually played twice a week in London on Resonance FM, and it's played in Australia on 3CR in Melbourne. So, and I would say maybe 8 or 9 stations in Canada. So I'm trying to do a global show because the climate issue, which I focus on mostly, although I have worked on nuclear, is it's a global issue, and so we got to tackle it as a whole people.
Wow, do you have do you originate with a Pacifica station?
No, I started out with co-op radio in Canada at CFRO in Vancouver, and went for a couple of years there, and then started broadening out more and picking out more stations. So that I started in 2006. So I've been doing this a long time. Mostly I just interview scientists and authors and experts, either about climate change or other environmental issues.
And do you produce your own show?
I do it all. I produce it, distribute it.
You're your own
edit
producer.
it.
And where are you?
Because I knew there would be no money in it. I watched Betsy Rosenberg on Air America go down 100 grand of her own money. And I've watched other really good broadcasters who had to quit because they had to go out and get another job. So I was lucky enough that I could just set myself up with a shoestring budget and keep on going with no staff. And I get a few donations, but not much, but here I am.
Well, you sound like you're in the same ballpark with LIBBE HALEVY. LIBBE, do you want to talk about what you do?
I produce Nuclear Hot Seat at nuclearhotseat.com. Thanks for bringing that up, MYLA. I've got over 700 episodes that are up there, and I'm one of those people with a long attention span, so my shows are an hour long. It's every week, and it's interviews. I do news. I do other segments as well, and then I get it out on audio port. I get it out through the website. I have a database that I have been building, but I have not, and I get it out on Facebook. I have some people who help me post on Facebook, but I don't have a crew. I don't have anybody helping me. I could really use some help with the tech. I really need some help with social media, which is why that's my focus right now. My goal is, and I have lots of thoughts about doing just, minute or 90-second little blips where people can get a piece of information and then build upon it. I just haven't had the time, the energy, the facility, the knowledge to be able to structure it correctly. So it was Doug who was talking before, right?
No, Alex Smith. It was Alex Smith.
Oh, Alex, over there. I was looking in the wrong direction. Alex, if I'll take a look at your site, and maybe if we could talk just how you've got it structured, because I can generate the content, I can get it up, I can get the web page there, I can get it out on audio port, and I can get it on Facebook. Once I've hit that benchmark, and I've got my email list that goes out, but once I've hit that benchmark, I know that there's much more that can be done, and I'm not doing it because I don't know what to do or how to do it.
That's what we're looking to do here. So we need a central kind of facilitation to get podcasts and broadcasts like Doug's, Jack's, Libby's, and Alex, and so many others out there. And so far for this show or gathering, Steve Caruso has done a phenomenal job. We also have, the affiliates of Pacifica. I think we should reconvene this group a week from today, again at 3:00. We'll build the audience a little more, but this is a phenomenal group and a great way to start. I know John Steiner is probably interested in this kind of facilitation as well. So let's reconvene in a week and bring in all your friends and neighbors, and let's build this. Alex, it's great to hear what you've been doing. It's phenomenal. I've heard Doug Wood's show. It's phenomenal. Jack, of course, and Steve, we've heard in Pacifica and KPFK. So let's just rock and roll here. Daniela, David, and Mimi S. Go ahead, Daniela.
I have a few things I'd like to say. I think it's wonderful what Alex Smith is doing. I have a YouTube channel that I haven't tried to promote very much, but it's gotten, the poems on it are prize-winning video poems with images of nature. And I am a experienced broadcaster. I'm a professor of public speaking. I was a Shakespearean actress. I've traveled the country giving talks on climate, and I'm a climate leadership. I got a diploma.
Okay, so what is your website?
I don't know why you don't let me finish. Other people are allowed to finish saying. I'm getting to it, please. But I often feel, so my point is I have all this experience and stuff that's going on. And I also have many prize-winning poems on this issue. But the point is, and I've worked a lot with Pacifica through the years, both on the West and East Coast. But I wanted to say that there is, I'm sure you're all aware of Midas online with its millions of followers on YouTube. Would they be interested in our giving them a link, especially for environmental issues? That's one point. Another point is that on Blue Sky, there you can put videos, and you can hook up with other people interested in environmental issues. So my point is, I was trying to say that I was trained early on by Al Gore as a climate leadership speaker. And also, I know that Bill McKibben, whom I knew and worked with at 350.org, has his own newsletter where he might like a link to things that are particularly environmental, because he has a big following and he's a friend of Bernie Sanders up there in Vermont. So he's another way we might tap having a link to what we want to do, a program that we want to do, particularly on environmental issues. So those were some of the things I wanted to offer, because I think there are ways we can hook up with things that are already out there that have huge audiences that might allow us to put a link to what we're going to build.
Wonderful. Very, very good, Danielle. Thank you. Well, speaking of linking, let's make sure everybody, if you will put your emails in the chat so that we can make sure we can link. Danielle, that's a great suggestion. Alex, I don't think I have you. I think I have everybody else. But if you're anybody willing to be part of this, please put your email in the chat so we can collate them and build a string here. That's a great start.
One more thing quickly.
Yeah, please.
I loved about the Native American youth. A couple of weeks or so ago, I was on a PDA meeting where the young people who are forming progressive Democrats of America, I think it would be so good if the young people who are forming that, who were very articulate and capable, could hook up with the Native American youth so that they wouldn't feel that they're in a little thing by themselves. I don't know how to reach those young people who were on PDA a while back. They're starting a whole new division of PDA, and they were young and youthful and they have a following. It would be so great if they could hook up with the Native American youth. And also, I have all these young people, I'd like to refer to them because we have these meetings with us, pardon me, old fogies, but I'm trying to find out how to get more of my young people that I know and all the students I've known through the years hooked into PDA and this environmental issue.
Well, Mike Hersh is our great link to PDA here. And Mike, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, that's ypda.org. And you can email them at info, I-N-F-O, at ypda.org. And that's a wonderful crew of younger progressives. We're doing an amazing job. Thank you, Daniela, for giving them a shout out. They're very impressive. Thank you.
Well, when we come back next week, let's start to have collated the kind of list that we really need and then figure out the logistics of adding everybody's content to the ability to project to all these other listservs and networks. I mean, that's the point. Very well done, Danielle. Thank you. And Mike, absolutely. Alex, very impressive. I know Doug Wood does this, and Extinction Rebellion does it, and Jack, you do it too. So let's build on this. Dave Saltman, and then Mimi S.
Yeah, I'm very overwhelmed with the greatness of all these ideas. You know, knock yourselves out. I just wanted to say one thing. I think that the couple of you really hit what, in my view, is the nail on the head. I'm older than probably everybody here, but I've been in broadcasting all this time. I was deeply involved in underground radio when that was a thing. And what you're describing about the plot problems of Pacifica and the money problems, and there aren't enough producers, and I don't know the technical stuff and whatever. That's the business, folks. Get over it, because you can't get away from it. I was the news director of KMET in Los Angeles in 1972, I guess it was. And I had just finished doing an interview after the death of Roy Disney, an interview with the Disney characters, getting their opinions about Roy's death. That famous Harry Shearer did my voices for me back when he was an unknown. He was a local guy in LA doing the Credibility Gap. Well, guess what? 10 days after that went on the air, they shut the whole thing down. Metro Media sold the station to, a top 40 producer, and we were all out of jobs. So, and I realized that's the nature of the beast. So let me tell you one thing that at least I discovered. I worked at CBS when Paley was running the company, and I worked at CNN when Turner was running the company, before the mergers and so on. And that was the time you could get things done. When it was just one phone call, if there was any question about it, they had the money and they were willing. So we started up I worked on, I'm sure you all know this show, Sunday Morning with Charles Curol, the video postcards, which are still a legend in broadcasting. It's probably the first eco thing ever on television. And it's still running today, got to be 45 years later. That was something that, Shad said to Paley, let's do it. And we did it. At CNN, same thing when Turner was running the thing. So I won't bore you with all these details. I'm just saying it goes back to the question that we asked a couple of weeks ago when John Steiner, I don't know if he's still online here, but the question is, where are our millionaires and billionaires? Because they're going to have to finance this. And it only takes one guy or one woman or one guy and one woman. Or two women or any combination thereof. I better shut up before I get myself in trouble.
No, you're doing great, David.
You hear what I'm saying? I rest my case.
If you're listening out there and you got a itchy checkbook or a bunch of Bitcoins, whatever the hell that is, send them along.
I've never heard that term, itchy checkbook. I like that. That's great. Salty, thank you for that. And I got to tell you, Dave Saltman's the real deal. We've known each other since before time. So Mimi S., go ahead, please.
Hi, Sluggo. Thank you so much. How perfect that we've circled back to Norman Solomon, because my suggestion is, how about Roots Action Network, right? Is that his site? Because that very much has an ecological sound to it. So is that Norman Solomon's site? I think, if I'm remembering.
Yes.
Okay.
So Norman and Jack, Norman and Jeff
David
Cohen
Swanson.
and David Swanson, yeah.
That would be fantastic to, make that some kind of hub, because I already have the name and there are already some powerhouse progressives there.
Yeah, so that's another one. We will have next week, we'll have a list and we can all contribute to the list. And David, the Salty, the beauty of a lot of this is how little in the day of Zoom, and we have Alex who's telling us he's producing his own show and going to all these outlets. What we need is somebody, a producer, a content person, and then a networker.
It doesn't take that much. You're absolutely right.
And that's maybe if we have somebody with a couple of $100, that would be helpful,
Take my advice. Go for a couple of 100 million.
Okay. Well, it's chump change for these guys. Mimi, did you want to jump in with something else?
I wasn't sure what I thought about the 1-minute AI videos, but now that the previous speaker, I think that was David Saltman, mentioned the postcards that he did for Sunday mornings, and they still do them. That would be a fantastic idea as well. And maybe, I don't know, float text over them or I don't know. But
No. Oh, I must protest. The beauty of those things was it was 1 minute of all natural sound. No text, no print, no narration, just a beautiful, the Ausable chasm as the ice is breaking with the natural sound. Oh my God, it was to die for. It's going to be on this Sunday. Watch it. They're still good.
Oh, I know. I do know them. I was just trying to think how to wrap in a call to action afterwards or something. So that's
you can't put lipstick on a pig,
Well, we could do a yes and, with the old improv where there's no such thing as no. And Sluggo, Betty has been very patient. She wants to.
Betty, and then Melissa, and then Steve Caruso, and then we'll go back to Melissa. Oh,
can I just say, let's go to Betty for sure. But I'm delighted to see that Esther, and I'm sorry, Esther, I'm not sure how to pronounce your last name. I think it's a Verum, but I could be wrong. But Esther has a show called On the Ground that airs not only on WPFW, Pacifica's Jazz and Justice station in Washington, D.C., but is also, I think she's been podcasting for something like 30 years and is heard So let's hear from Betty, and please, Esther, we'd love to hear more about what you do out there in Washington, D.C.
Okay, Betty Kisselov, please go ahead.
We've been talking about all this as a global issue, an environmental issue, and somebody mentioned, reinventing the wheel, and that phrase always perks up my ears because I'd love it if everyone who's listening in this webinar or in this meeting to really take a deep, serious look into the Earth Charter, which has been around for 25 years now. And it is a framework. It's the Earth Charter Values and Principles for a Sustainable Future. And it's divided into 4 areas: respect and care for the community of life, ecological integrity, social and economic justice, democracy, nonviolence, and peace. And it's a framework. It's a framework to keep us in this most necessary planetary context, whatever issue we're talking about. And, people call this we're in an environmental crisis. The crisis is with us, not with the environment. It's a crisis of the human spirit at this point, and deals with every aspect. And we are the environment. We keep forgetting that. But please take a serious deep dive into the Earth Charter. It is a framework to, again, keep us within that context and to have that as a jumping off point in how we look at these things. And one other point about Indigenous wisdom, which is throughout the Earth Charter. They were a big contributors to it in its formation. Do you know the organization Pioneers?
Yeah, I've heard of them.
They have been working with indigenous people working with indigenous people and youth and everything. And so I strongly urge you to connect with them.
Pioneers is still going? They're still working?
Yes, I think yes, definitely. I mean, go to pioneers.org.
So we need to compile. What's that?
I was involved with the very first Pioneers conference. I helped with them.
They're still going on. There's one in March. I think it.
Betty, that's wonderful. And if anybody has contact information, we'd love to have them join us next week.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, I can't resist, but you mentioned my show called On the Ground. For those who are interested, there's a fabulous documentary about the rise of the Liberation News Service, which is a real precursor to what we're talking about here. It happened in 1967, 68. And there's a documentary, it's a PBS documentary called Under the Ground, the story of Liberation News Service. And I think you'll all find it really interesting. I was involved and we were infiltrated by the FBI. It's one of those conspiracy theories that we're 100% certain is true because we have the documents. So look for Under the Ground, the story of the Liberation News Service. You can get it off pbs.org. It's 90 minutes. It's quite amazing. We're joined by Ursula of Ruedenberg.
Can I just say pioneers.org?
Pioneers.org. Wonderful.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
We're joined by Ursula Ruedenberg. Hi, Ursula. Ursula is the coordinator of the Pacifica affiliates, 250 or so campus and community radio stations that are a part of exactly what we're talking about. Ursula, we spent the last hour, we'll end at 4:20, by the way, Pacific time. That's when we all turn into a pumpkin. But we're going for 2 hours already. As I say, this gathering has the longest attention span of anything in America. But Ursula has done a fabulous job over the years of coordinating the Pacifica affiliate network. Ursula, if you'll say hi, and it's just glad to see you. If there's anything you want to chime in with, please join us. You may at some point want to listen to the first hour of what we've just been through. It's quite amazing. And right above you on the grid here is Steve Caruso, who has been the engineer and coordinator of these gatherings, along with freepress.org, which is the website that publishes a lot of the stuff that's related to this. Steve, you have a hand. Do you want to say hi to Ursula and say what you were going to say?
Yeah, hi, Ursula. Yeah, we run WGRN. I don't know if they're under your purview here. I don't run it. I have a friend. I tried to get him on the call tonight, but Tim Chavez maybe. And I've actually talked to you now that I remember. It's been a while, but audio port's still working great, and we appreciate everything you're doing out there. Thank you.
Yes, Ursula runs on. Well, Ursula, tell us. Tell us what you do, Ursula, please.
I manage the Pacifica's affiliate network. So my work is the network building part of Pacifica. So it's my job to relate to all the many fantastic radio stations and also the many fantastic independent producers that affiliate with Pacifica and work with us to develop content and to do community radio. And I apologize for my delay in showing up. I was caught up in something else and had to finish. But
that's quite all right.
Yeah, I'll be happy to listen to the tape of what happened before me.
Well, and if you can, we're going to meet again at 3:00 Pacific time next week, same time, same place, and pursue this. We have a number of Pacifica broadcasters on with us, and the Pacifica Network, as Dave Saltman has pointed out, is a rock, but we have many, many other ancillary avenues to put the stuff out that we need to put out. So it's great you're with us. Melissa Richardson Hall, anybody else want to speak up at the time? We're going to be on for another 15 minutes if you need be. We have, what do we got? 55 people with us still after 2 hours. So Melissa, go ahead, please.
Very quick question. Thank you, Logo. It's for everybody. I'm very concerned about the environment. I do what I can. Can I do a list for any of the groups or anything? And is it okay if I re-put my email in the chat?
Of course. And we've linked a number of people together today. We hope maybe next week Bob Hanley will come on from BAI and others. And everyone on here, please feel free to recruit other content providers. I mean, I think we're really strong on content and not so strong as you are, Ursula and Steve Caruso are on projection, and that's what we need. So our working title is ECO-Broadcast Network, but who knows, but it doesn't really matter. What we do need is a way to get our stuff out more efficiently through the various channels.
That's why I offered to do the list for any groups, call people and stuff.
Great, of course. You'll be definitely a part of this. We really do need it. Mimi S, and then if no one, Esther Iverum, good to see you. Mimi S, and then Esther.
Thank you so much, Sluggo. I wanted to let people know that even though 47 has taken us out of the Paris Climate Accords, there is the organization We Are Still In, that leaders and companies and churches, houses of worship, all kinds of organizations have signed on to. It's called wearestillin.com. And there's also a site called climatemayors.org. So ask your mayors to become a part of Climate Mayors. So these are the alternatives now that the U.S. has pulled out again from the Paris Climate Accord. So I just wanted to draw attention to those two organizations. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. We do, by the way, have a website. We have a page at the GREEP website, which Steve Caruso runs. Steve, if you want to put up a URL there, we're just going to start to build it now. It will be a central listing of all the people who, and podcasters, broadcasters, writers, content providers who want to be listed, who are post-nuclear, by the way. That's one thing we don't want to get into this whole nuclear Michigats again. That's clear. So we are a post-nuclear green network, and we have a site that Steve runs, which is the site for the GREEP calls. So we'll have a page there ready to rock and roll. That's where you go to look at the Zooms, and we will use that page to. These are the archived. We have 200 and some archived Zoom gatherings dating back to April 2020. And then Steve also works with freepress.org, which is the great website that publishes our written stuff and also links in with a lot of the podcasts and broadcasts. Esther, go ahead, please.
Yeah. Hi,
You're the
everyone.
second person to turn up with a beach background. So congratulations.
Oh, good. Well, hello, everyone. Greetings. I just wanted to come on since I was so graciously invited by MYLA to respond to her shout out on the Zoom. So just real quickly, On the Ground is a show, On the Ground, Voices of Resistance from the Nation's Capital is a show on Pacifica Radio. It started at WPFW, but we're on, I think, between 2 and 3 dozen stations now on the Pacifica Network. And we do a podcast, and we also do a website where people can, also listen to the show there. So I've been listening to some of the challenges that people have been expressing, and I certainly have been through it in the 10 years that I've been doing the show. Not quite 30 years, MYLA, but 10 years at least. And distributing it on social media as well. So I was invited to this meeting, and my idea, I thought it was really to definitely come up and produce a day-long special on the environment and climate for Pacifica Radio or whatever platforms that we're distributing on, and also plan something
for Melissa Richardson.
Perhaps for
anyone who
Earth
wants
Day. And so I just wanted to say that I'm very interested in that, and that's really why I'm here. Okay.
Well, good. I'm sure you and Ursula are in touch, and we will have a much fuller gathering next week, and we will have our page going at the GREEP website, and this is phenomenal. I mean, this is pretty much what we hoped for. MYLA will be coordinating the April 22nd event, and I will probably put out a piece in the next couple of days, and then try and do a half-hour podcast on that. Dennis Bernstein, I talked to him earlier. I somehow missed this. I will be on with him tomorrow at Flashpoints. He's out of KPFA and is nationally syndicated as well. So this is the birth of our own network. Tentatively the ECO-BROADCAST Network, ECO meaning both ecology and economy. And we're watching Donald Trump completely destroy the American future here in concert with Gavin Newsom to be bipartisan, who's doing the same to California. At this point in time, Gavin Newsom has done way more damage than Donald Trump has, and we're going to have to deal with that. So I will also gladly report to you all that it has rained in Southern California, and we've made the usual Southern California transition from deadly fires to deadly mudslides. And no doubt the tidal wave will come soon enough after the big one. So at any rate, does anyone else, we're at 4:12 California time, still with 55 people. Does anyone else want to chime in before we roll on out? Yes, Daniela, and then anybody else, please do. Go ahead. Hold on, Daniela, you're not on mute. Go ahead.
I'm on, right? I just have a question. How do I get in touch with Dennis Bernstein? We did many programs together in the old days.
Well, email me and I will forward it to Dennis. My email is solartopia@gmail. SOLAR T-shirt here. Solartopia@gmail. And anybody else want to write me? Please do. Libby and I go way, way back. Alex, great to meet you. MYLA is wonderful. We just had an incredibly great crew here, and we'll resume again a week from today. Jack, good to see you. Hopefully, we'll be back on Pacifica at KPFK one of these days. But the point is that there are bigger fish and whales out there that we need to start to, or shall we say, spice worms we need to ride, having just watched Dune 2, which is a pretty amazing movie, for God's sakes. Again, I want to emphasize, and I will put it up at some point, a movie, a documentary you all want to see, which is reminiscent of what we're doing right now from 1967. A couple of guys with Miranda Porch, a poet, Ray Mungo, a Marshall Bloom, started the Liberation News Service. It was founded at the Pentagon October 20th, 1967. There it is. It's under the ground. It's very easy to go. PBS.org, Under the Ground, the Story of Liberation News Service. 90 minutes. We were definitely infiltrated by the FBI. J. Edgar Hoover personally signed off. We still don't know who the actual infiltrators were, although some people may think they do. Then when you've seen that, I will recommend the sequel next week, which is called Far Out, about life on and after the commune. That's a whole other story. Anyway, listen, it's 4:15. Oh, Melissa, did you want to say something further? Or is that
I definitely want to say something more.
Go ahead, Myla,
I had
please.
my hand up and it was removed by some
Go ahead,
artificial-
Myla.
Anyway, go ahead, Myla.
I am. Thank you. I was saying that sometimes the artificial intelligence removes hands, and that happened to be the case. At any rate, I really wanted to thank you, Ursula, for sending the invitation out. I think that as a result of that invitation, Alex Smith came. We haven't seen you before. I'm thinking that that's how you came to us. Alex, is that correct? Wonderful that you responded to that. And I am putting together a Discord so that people don't necessarily have to be in the same place at the same time, and people can meet up and leave messages. And sometimes it's easier than using email. So I'm going to be setting up a Discord, and we'll send out the information about that. I was just trying to set it up now so that you could all have an invitation. But Alex Smith, I was looking on your website and I couldn't find your contact information. And did you put your email in the chat? I see your lips are moving, but you're muted.
Yeah.
Okay.
There we go. You're done.
It's simple. It's radio@ecoshock.org. So that's ECO-shock.org.
Thank you.
Alex, if you'll email me directly, please, I'd appreciate it. Solartopia@gmail. If anybody else wants to email me, please, that would be great. Myla, did you want to say further?
Well, that was it. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa, and then Steve Caruso, our engineer. You get the last word. Melissa, did you want to say something?
My comment is towards Steve Caruso and Myla. Thank you all for having me, first of all. I am concerned environmentally as well, and I put my thing in the chat, my email and information for all of you who want it. I'm a person with cerebral palsy, Mr. Caruso, and I have a contribution, and I can do all the dirty work you need me to do. I really don't need to be a star or a poster child. I am worth something, and I want to survive.
Well, we love you. We're glad to have you on. Thank you so much. And Steve, I'm sure you'll take her up on that. Steve Caruso, you get the last word, bro.
Yeah. On YouTube, and I don't know how everybody feels about this, and I love the way Democracy Now! Does, sharing all the information free, just take it and go. Creative Commons is great, but on YouTube, if people put their YouTubes as a Creative Commons license, they can be replayed on YouTube and shared. We always have this problem where we can't play other people's videos. We'd like to, but for some reason, YouTube just takes them down if you have copywritten stuff, and their default license is for them. So you have to go into your settings and specifically choose Creative Commons license, which means that anybody can share it. And that's all I have to say. Thank you. And Melissa, if you want to get a hold of me, I'll give you my email here. I don't know what you can do for us, but sounds like you got something up your sleeve there.
All right. Thank you so much. And Mike Hersh, I guess you get the last word now.
Well, just a real quick reminder. Everybody like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube feed. If you're not watching us live, or if you're watching again, don't keep it to yourself. Let all your friends who care about the environment and the ecology and the economy, and you can't have an economy without ecology. Yeah, that just doesn't work. So please spread the word, and help us get the message out. We really appreciate that. And I see Michael O. Johnson has raised his hand.
You got 1 minute, bro. Go for it. Here, unmute you.
And I'm expecting a reggae tune to get us out.
I can't
Michael,
get
if you can,
unmuted. I don't know
Michael,
what's
if you can
going on.
unmute yourself, please. All we can do is ask you to unmute. There you go. I think
All
you
right,
did
1 minute, bro. We're down to 4:20. Everybody's got to go out and toke up.
it.
Where'd you go?
Somebody lowered his hand, but Michael, if you want to unmute, we're asking you to do so. I guess what we can do is wrap up the
Okay.
recording and ask everybody to unmute and say hi.
All right, you got. Oh, there you go, Michael. Go ahead, man. No, you're still muted.
Yep.
All right, everybody. We will see you next week. This has been phenomenal. No nukes. See you in Solartopia and see you on the ECO-BROADCAST Network. We'll see you next week, you guys.
And Daniela has something she wants to say. Daniela, if we can unmute you. And thank you so much for your contributions, Daniela, while we're unmuting you.
Goodbye. I'm just
Okay.
supposed to wave goodbye. Thank you.
Goodbye, everybody. Michael, we'll get you next week earlier in the call. Libby, wonderful. Ursula, great to see you. Everybody, Gary O'Connor, all you guys, everybody, wonderful. Jack will be in touch. And pray for rain now in California, and pray
But
we
not-
hold off on the big one, at least until we get Diablo Canyon shut. All
But
right.
not too much rain too fast, just enough.
You got it. All right,
And
you guys.
We made history today.
We did indeed. No nukes, everybody. We'll see you next week. Thank you, Steve Caruso, for engineering. And Mike, thank you.
Fight the power.
That's
Also,
it.
power the fight.
And